Have you ever heard a man say, "Love will conquer all," right before his life falls apart? Have you seen someone struggle not because they lacked love, but because they believed love alone was enough? Let's get brutally honest, marrying while poor isn't just hard. It's dangerous. And not just financially, but politically, psychologically, even spiritually. This isn't just about money. It's about power, perception, survival. And no one understood that better than Niccolò Machiavelli. In this video, we're diving into why marrying when you're poor may be one of the most self-destructive choices you can make, and why even the most romantic souls like Jean-Jacques Rousseau or the cold strategists like Schopenhauer, Marx, and Nietzsche would agree. Stick around till the end, because there's a jaw-dropping true historical case that proves this point better than any theory. If you're into raw truths, power dynamics, and philosophical insights that cut deep, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's get into it. Niccolò Machiavelli, often labeled the father of political realism, would find the idea of marrying in poverty not just foolish, but dangerous. Though the prince doesn't speak directly on marriage, the underlying principles leave no room for doubt. For Machiavelli, life is a contest of power, and any decision that diminishes leverage is a strategic error. Power must come first, then come alliances, not the other way around. A man without resources is a man without options. If he marries while poor, he gains no advantage, he merely adds responsibilities he cannot shoulder. From this lens, marriage isn't about affection or fulfillment. It's a transaction, a political maneuver, an alliance between entities with something to offer. If you enter such a union while in debt, while scraping by, you're not making a power move. You're making a liability permanent. Machiavelli would say, never negotiate from weakness, and never bind yourself when your position is vulnerable. Historically, marriage has never been about romance, it's been about resources. Royal marriages were contracts written in bloodlines and battle lines. Kings and queens didn't fall in love, they secured borders, inherited kingdoms, and merged empires. The idea of love as a basis for marriage is modern, and even now, often a luxury afforded by the economically secure. Today, marriage still functions as an economic institution, pooling incomes, consolidating assets, managing risks. When two poor people marry, it's not an alliance, it's a doubling down on scarcity. You're not building a castle together. You're trying to patch a sinking lifeboat with wet paper. That's not romantic. It's a setup for failure. Struggling individuals don't stabilize each other, they amplify instability. The result isn't partnership, it's pressure. When both partners are fighting for survival, there's no room left for affection, let alone growth. You weigh each other down until one, or both, collapse under the load. Arthur Schopenhauer wasn't known for optimism, but he was brutally honest about human relationships. He warned men against the illusion of romantic love, particularly when filtered through economic desperation. According to him, what we call love is often just instinct wearing a fancy costume, and that costume falls apart under financial strain. He famously wrote, "Marrying means to have one's rights and double one's duties, a chilling but accurate assessment of the cost of commitment." Now imagine assuming twice the responsibility with zero increase in security or income. It's a recipe for resentment. Under poverty, what begins as romance mutates into obligation, and what was once passion becomes pressure. Love doesn't just fade under hardship, it turns hostile. The everyday grind of poverty, unpaid bills, food insecurity, emotional exhaustion, makes tenderness nearly impossible. Schopenhauer saw it clearly: when you can't meet your own needs, you shouldn't be signing up for someone else's. Even Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the idealist who championed human goodness and natural virtue, couldn't escape the crushing weight of economic dependence. In Confessions, he admits that his poverty was so severe, he abandoned his own children to an orphanage, a move he would later regret, but could never undo. This wasn't a failure of morality. It was a failure of material stability. When your basic needs aren't met, your moral compass spins wildly. Rousseau's abandonment wasn't selfishness, it was desperation. Poverty doesn't leave room for noble ideals. It hijacks your priorities, shrinks your world, and forces you into choices you'd never otherwise make. People think love and family flourish under adversity. Often, the opposite is true. You don't become a better partner or parent when you're hungry or homeless. You become erratic. You survive by cutting corners. And in survival mode, compassion is the first casualty. Karl Marx would cut right to the core. Economics isn't a backdrop to relationships, it's the engine. The material conditions of your life dictate everything else. Who you love, how you live, what you tolerate, all shaped by the brutal logic of capital. Under capitalism, poverty isn't just a challenge. It's a trap. When two poor people marry, they aren't just combining lives, they're consolidating economic vulnerability. They create a household where every emergency becomes a crisis, and every dream gets delayed indefinitely. Marx would say this isn't personal failure, it's systemic design. Capitalism requires a working class too exhausted to rebel and too burdened to escape. Marriage, under these conditions, doesn't offer stability. It just replicates the very inequalities that created the hardship in the first place. Children born into such unions inherit the same struggle. The cycle repeats. What looks like a personal choice is actually an economic inevitability. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't buy the fairy tale. He saw love as biology's bait, an emotional trick to get humans to reproduce and protect offspring. But in poverty, that trick turns savage. Romantic idealism becomes delusion. Nietzsche would argue that love is not a plan, it's a fleeting impulse, dangerous when mistaken for a foundation. The will to power, Nietzsche's core idea, demands self-mastery and long-term strategy. It means building strength before surrendering to any bond. Marrying while poor isn't an act of courage, it's an abdication of foresight. It's choosing sentiment over survival. Nietzsche wouldn't respect that. He'd see it as weakness hiding behind noble words. The world doesn't reward those who confuse momentary passion for lifelong commitment. It punishes them harshly. And when the bills come due, the illusion of love disappears, revealing only debt, dependence, and disappointment. The Stoic philosophers, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, were unanimous on one point: attach yourself only to what you can control. Everything else invites suffering. Poverty, by nature, is chaos. It brings uncertainty, fear, and instability. To marry while trapped in that chaos is to tether your fate to a sinking platform. The Stoics warned against this kind of emotional impulsiveness. They believed peace comes not from external circumstances, but from internal discipline and clarity. You don't gain that clarity while struggling to pay rent or skipping meals to survive. Marriage isn't just a bond, it's a shared destiny. When you're poor, that destiny is riddled with hardship. You aren't preparing for life together, you're bracing for impact. The Stoics would advise, wait until you are whole, autonomous, self-directed. Then, and only then, should you consider merging your life with another. Otherwise, you are not choosing a partner, you are choosing a storm. The numbers don't lie. Financial stress is one of the top 3 reasons couples divorce, right alongside infidelity and poor communication. And often, the first leads to the other two. When the money runs out, so does patience. Debts pile up. Tempers flare. What started as teamwork turns into blame. The emotional bandwidth shrinks to survival mode. You stop asking, "How are we?" and start asking, "How will we pay rent?" Love may light the flame, but money is the oxygen. Without it, the relationship suffocates. You can't cuddle away an eviction notice. You can't kiss your way through unemployment. Financial strain isn't just stressful, it's corrosive. It erodes intimacy, trust, and long-term planning. And eventually, when hope runs out, so does the marriage. History has receipts. Take Thomas Müntzer, radical theologian, revolutionary voice, and martyr of the German Peasants' War. Munzer believed in spiritual revolution and justice for the poor. He lived and married according to those values. He thought conviction could replace stability, that love and God would feed his family. But when the rebellion collapsed, so did everything else. He lost financial backing, community support, and the means to provide. His family bore the weight of his idealism. Munzer was executed, his vision left in ashes, and his household thrown into chaos. His marriage wasn't saved by passion or piety. It was crushed by poverty. He's remembered for his ideas, but forgotten as a cautionary tale. Principles don't put food on the table. Passion doesn't pay rent. Ideals without resources can destroy the very people you love. Struggle love is a myth sold by movies, music, and trauma cycles. It's the fantasy that true love is proven through suffering, that staying through pain is noble. But that version of love skips the quiet collapse behind closed doors, the depression, the anxiety, the deep fatigue of daily survival. Real struggle love isn't candlelit dinners and whispered promises in the dark. It's skipped meals, maxed out credit cards, and smiling through panic attacks. It's pretending you're okay so your partner doesn't fall apart too. And more often than not, it doesn't end in triumph. It ends in emotional numbness, disconnection, and regret. Love isn't always forged in fire. Sometimes, it burns there and never comes back. In game theory, timing and positioning are everything. Move too early, and you expose your weakness. Act without leverage, and you lose power. The same applies to relationships. If you commit while financially unstable, you create imbalance from the start. One person becomes the provider, the fixer, the emotional anchor. The other becomes a burden, even unintentionally. Resentment builds. Pressure mounts. Strategic thinkers don't rush in. They invest in themselves first, emotionally, financially, mentally. They position themselves to contribute, not just to depend. That's not selfish, it's intelligent. Waiting until you're strong isn't cold-hearted. It's protective. It increases the odds of success and decreases the risk of collapse. It's not love on delay. It's love with a plan. When poor couples marry, they often don't just risk themselves, they risk their future children. Kids born into economic instability carry that stress long before they understand what money is. They feel the tension in the air, the arguments behind closed doors, the panic over bills. Studies show that children raised in poverty suffer higher rates of anxiety, depression, educational challenges, and health issues. Their emotional development gets stunted by constant scarcity. They grow up too fast, learning to cope before they learn to play. This isn't hypothetical. It's generational damage. And it's preventable. Choosing not to marry until you're stable isn't fear, it's foresight. It's refusing to gamble with lives that didn't ask to be dealt a bad hand. Poverty doesn't just affect your wallet, it affects your brain. The scarcity mindset is well documented in psychology. It narrows focus, reduces cognitive bandwidth, and increases impulsivity. You don't plan long-term when you're thinking about how to survive the week. Your decision-making degrades under pressure. You cut corners. You settle. Now add another person to that mental load. Add children. Add expectations. That's not a recipe for growth, it's a pressure cooker. People romanticize building from nothing, but poverty doesn't give you room to build. It demands constant repair, constant hustle. And every bad decision you make in that state compounds. Marriage isn't just about emotional compatibility, it's about mental readiness. And scarcity hijacks that readiness every single day. We love the started from the bottom story. It sells albums, wins elections, inspires tweets. But in real life, building from nothing together usually means trauma bonding, not triumph. It's long hours, short tempers, and broken promises. You don't become soulmates, you become cellmates, locked into a life neither of you can escape. One person becomes the emotional crutch. The other becomes the dependent. What looks like loyalty is often fear, fear of being alone, of failing alone, of starting over. And many of these stories end not with a happy couple, but with one partner burnt out and the other bitter. Love isn't proven by how much pain you survive together. It's proven by how much peace you can create for each other. And peace needs stability. You cannot offer what you do not have. Marriage isn't rehab. It's not where you go to heal your wounds or escape your circumstances. It's a union of two already whole individuals, not two people hoping the other will complete them. Self-respect comes from meeting your own needs first. Providing for yourself. Holding your own emotionally, financially, and mentally. Without that, marriage becomes a transaction rooted in insecurity. Expectations go unmet. Resentment replaces romance. And the relationship crumbles under the weight of unrealistic hopes. If you can't carry your own life, you're not ready to carry someone else's love. That's not shameful. It's honest. Build yourself first. Then bring someone into the life you've made, not the struggle you're escaping. So when should you marry? When you've built a foundation. When you have control over your mind, money, and time. When marriage adds to your life, not becomes the reason you're barely surviving it. That's not pessimism. That's planning. If Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be on Tinder. He'd be watching the economy, building his assets, strengthening alliances. He'd see marriage not as a romantic leap, but a strategic partnership. One that only makes sense when you're not a pawn, but a player. So, before you say, "I do," ask yourself, am I doing this from strength, or from scarcity? Love may be blind, but poverty is unforgiving. Be wise. Be patient. This is the Beyond the Surface channel. If this video made you think twice, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. The game of life is real. Play it smart. Thank you for watching.